I love my own music. I'm definitely my biggest fan. And why shouldn't I be my biggest fan? Welcome, this is Hakeem-Alexander. HypnoAthletics, exercising your mind. Today this presentation will be on the 4 hypnotic stages of competence, using the emotional incubation method to navigate successfully through the 4 hypnotic stages of competence. Now, the stages of competence aren't my own creation. I adopted it and then adapted it slightly for my purposes with HypnoAthletics and my own programs. And so this is the difference. So the 4 stages of competence come from psychology. And in psychology, it's listed this way, that you go from unconscious incompetence to conscious incompetence to conscious competence, and then through unconscious competence. And the slight difference is in the last one, instead of me stating that you go into unconscious competence, I call it subconscious competence, because I make the distinction that if you are unconscious, then you completely don't know what's going on at all. Like, you have no idea how you got there, which is the case for a lot of people, whether they're succeeding or failing in life. They're unconscious. They have no idea how they're doing what they're doing. They're just doing it. It's their second nature. It's their autopilot. And so, but when you use the emotional incubation method to move from being unconsciously incompetent all the way through competence, then you don't simply move from conscious competence to unconscious competence. You move from conscious competence to subconscious competence. You see, you're not unconscious of it anymore. It's not that you have to think about it still like you did in conscious competence. You no longer have to focus on doing the right things. But you're also not completely unaware, because you've gone through the steps and the stages to identify, first of all, where you were being incompetent, why you were failing, and then you replaced those traits and behaviors that were causing you to fail with the traits and behaviors that lead to your success. And that is the difference of being subconscious and unconscious. Again, unconscious, you have no idea. Whereas in the subconscious, you just move it right below the threshold of competence, so that all you have to do is, if you really want to, you can go there and access it and alter it and change it as need be, because growth of the mind and in life is definitely not static, and there are always going to be updates to how we do this. So now let's start with unconscious incompetence. We call it incompetence in HypnoAthletics and in the 4 stages, the 4 hypnotic stages of competence. We call it incompetence because what is usually going on here is we have goals in life, or things that we want, okay? So we all want something. And let's just say that something is to land a role in a movie as an actor, right? You want to get the part. Or as a marksman, you want to more accurately hit the bullseye in the middle of your target, right? So we all have goals, we have targets that we want to hit, we want to reach. And the incompetent part here is that our emotions are completely out of alignment with our desires that we're shooting for. And this is what I've identified as one of the most important aspects of all goal achievement, is that we're emotionally out of alignment with success. And that causes us to associate all kinds of other thoughts and actions and behaviors with the goals that we have. And a lot of times that is what causes us to fail. So there is a concept talked about where you've probably heard before of a comfort zone. And so a lot of people are in their comfort zone. But this is not an entirely accurate description of what's actually happening. And so again, I've adopted the idea of the comfort zone and adapted it to my own purposes, because I think it's more efficient to call it, instead of a comfort zone, a familiarity zone. Because in the case of, let's say, finances, let's look at finances first, like money. A lot of people want more money, and they're uncomfortable with the amount of money that they have, but that's what they're familiar with on an unconscious level. And this is a zone that we're unconscious of. And see, our subconscious mind, which is also sometimes called the unconscious mind, and this is where I'm just going to talk about them interchangeably for now. But we have programs in our subconscious, unconscious mind that control our behavior and everything that we do. And when we're failing, it's because our unconscious minds, our subconscious minds are doing it's doing the best to protect us, to keep us alive, for survival. That's its main job. So anything that's new, all new ideas that have been untested and haven't proven yet to be good for our survival, are usually rejected. And in neurology, we know that this is due in large part to something called the reticular activating system, which I'm going to touch on in another presentation. I'm not going to get into it right now, but that will be following pretty soon. I'll probably record it right after I'm done with this one and make it available. So we have this familiarity zone, which may not be comfortable. And in the case of money, the ceiling of this, the top, the cap, there's a certain high level, the highest amount of money that we'll get, let's say, within any given period. Like, let's say every week if we get paid that often, or every month, okay? And if we earn more money or somehow have more money than that, whether it's gifted to us, we find it, we win it, okay, and we get more money in a month than we normally get, because of our unconscious, subconscious programming, we will spend that money very quickly to get back to, and probably on useless stuff, like knickknacks and just things we don't need, so that we then get back into our familiar zone, even though we're not comfortable with the amount of money that we usually have every month. So like, instead of doing something productive, constructive, to like build a business or invest in something or pay off debt or pay off some bills or something like that, we sabotage ourselves with that extra money that we've won or been gifted or whatever, however we got it, by spending it very quickly on something that we don't need and that's not going to help us. So that even though that's not comfortable and we may regret it, it puts us back into what we're familiar with. And the subconscious mind always wants to keep us in what we're familiar with, even though it's uncomfortable. That's why the whole idea of the comfort zone is not an adequate description of the zone that we're in. So a lot of people are in places in their lives that they're not comfortable with, because if they were comfortable with it, they wouldn't complain about it and they wouldn't say that they wanted more all the time. And a lot of times, yes, a lot of the discomfort comes from because people are listening to what other people say and what they think other people's standards are for living and what they should have because of what they see on TV and on the internet and other places. But still, they're uncomfortable with it. But they're still in that zone because it's what they're familiar with on a subconscious level. They're subconscious level. And that's what familiarity means as far as in behavioral science and as far as HypnoAthletics goes. Familiarity is simply a word that describes the dominant programming of your subconscious, unconscious mind. And that's what you're familiar with, and it's going to keep you there. It's going to do as much as it can to keep you there. And the same thing goes if you go below the floor or below the bottom, okay, of your familiarity zone. If for some reason you make less money, maybe you decided to start taking, less hours or whatever it is, and you do this for a little while, or it happens once, maybe you miss work because of being sick, or you wanted to go on a vacation and you see that your check is less that month, and what happens is the person scrambles. Maybe they'll work overtime to get back that money because it's what they're familiar with. And sometimes people don't even do it very consciously. They become conscious of it after they're starting to get into the activity of scrambling to get back to what they used to. But at first, it's their unconscious mind running a program to get them back to what they're familiar with. So that is the unconscious incompetence right there. That's the first stage where most people are. Is that we have to remember it's incompetent because it's running a program that is out of alignment with what you want. That's what makes it incompetent. In one way, it is competent because it's your unconscious mind doing exactly what it's been programmed to do. It's the algorithm that it's running to get a certain result. The unconscious mind is competently doing what's in its programming. But it's incompetent to you because the results that you're getting in life are not in alignment with what you want. And you wonder why you're not getting them. It's because on an unconscious level, that's all you really can do. The unconscious mind, the subconscious mind, controls our behavior. And so this is what we have to understand. And that it's in our familiarity zone, the subconscious programming. That's what our familiarity zone is. It's the subconscious programming. It's the sum total of our subconscious programming. That's what it means to have a familiarity zone, or what a lot of people call a comfort zone. Is the dominant subconscious, unconscious programming that controls our behavior and gets us the results that we have in our everyday life. And so our job is to now recognize that so that we can begin to change that. And so that's why in this part 1 here, we're talking about unconscious incompetence at stage 1. And next, we're going to talk about conscious incompetence, because now we know what's going on. We may not yet know what exactly to do about it, but that's why it's still incompetence. So now we're conscious of it though. Before we learned about the familiarity zone and that this stage, this hypnotic stage of competence, is our default setting, which can be changed. But now we know. Now we're conscious of it. So in the next presentation, in part 2 of the 4 hypnotic stages of competence, we're going to talk about conscious incompetence and how to move from there to conscious competence. And finally, in the 4th part, we'll talk about going to subconscious competence. My name is Hakeem-Alexander, HypnoAthletics, exercising your mind. Stay tuned.